Ladies, gents, and NBs, you've just entered the Last Save Lounge, a weekly interview show all about the games that saved our progress and a little bit of us. I am your intrepid host, Aaron Turbo Hoodie Amendola. Gosh, I'm happy you're here. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and click whatever doodly-doo you got to click to support the show and help it grow into a giant, unwieldy podcast kaiju. Right now, we're at Baby Godzilla. We want to get to Godzilla. In the meantime, we're around, like, if we grow to like a Mothra state, that's fine. But the idea is Baby Godzilla, Mothra, Godzilla, Mecha Godzilla. New episodes every Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts, with clips and video episodes on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And y'all, I'm very excited about, I'm excited every week. I love doing this show, but very excited about this week's guest. I met our guest while I was working at Groupon in Chicago, Illinois. They have since left the coupon mines. They work for a little card game called Cards Against Humanity and have since gone on to work at Bungie. Most notably of all, though, they've always had phenomenal taste in video games. I'm, of course, talking about Neon O'Day. Neon, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Aaron?
Not bad. I didn't even notice the nails. Can you, this is a great podcast. Can you just, look at that? Fantastic.
Unfortunately, my thumbnails, broke the other day. I was moving pavers from the front of our place to the back of our place, and one of them broke. The other one broke, midwinter. Yeah, just lovely long nails.
That. I've wanted to go to black or something for my nails, but I'm gonna wait for Rory to get old enough, then she can paint my nails, and I'll be like, cool, I got my first nail job from.
Yep.
Is that what it is? Nail? Sure.
Hey y'all, I'm Neon O'Day. I'm a senior technical UX designer at Bungie working on Destiny 2, and everything I'm saying today is my own views. Not representative of Bungie. Not a spokesperson for Bungie. They pay other people for that.
That's weird. Neon, I'm so happy that you are joining us today. I had a memory this morning as I was going over notes. You were one of the few people to have been with us for the Rainbow Road music video shoot.
Yes, I was there.
Song we wrote a few years
ago. I helped out with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I helped out with probably 2 or 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
It was all really, really fun. And like you said, we go all the way back to working together at Groupon, which at this point is what, 10, 12 years ago or so. We probably ate a million sandwiches from Snarf's.
Yeah.
It was the thing I remember. One of the things I remember the most about Groupon is how weirdly positioned that office was to try and go get food.
Oh, it was in a food desert for the longest time.
Totally. And so when the food trucks started coming out front, was oh my gosh, we finally can eat anything other than the, going to Snarf's, going to, was it Goddess and Grocer?
Goddess and Grocer was across the street, and
walking over the long walk to Big and Little's.
Mm-hmm.
Or
you would have thought there's only 3 restaurants in a 6-block radius of the office, but a bunch of restaurants came in after you left, and then they built a nice cafe in the actual building. So you wouldn't want to there ended up being all these nice eatery options, but then the cafe inside the office was amazing.
Sure.
So then suddenly you couldn't help but have the nicest, heaviest sandwich. So you'd always want to take a nap at your desk afterwards. But those were the days. The people at Snarf's knew me by name. I visited a friend in Denver to go see Brandy Carlisle at Red Rocks, and we passed to Snarf's. And I was like, there's another one? It's a chain?
Apparently it's from Colorado.
Crazy.
The chain is from there or something. So we had the weird variant one.
That makes sense.
With the and I don't know if their branding is consistent across all of their locations or whatever, but they had that branding that had these people's heads, and one of them that had the eyes sort of drifting off. It was he's Nickelodeon is the thing that I would say.
Yeah.
It wasn't gross out or disgusting or anything. It was just that sort of alternative, but corporate safe alternative kind of vibe.
Yeah, kind of like if the record store and Empire Records did get turned into a Tower Records, but they kept all the branding of Empire.
A little bit, yeah.
There's a very specific age range that's going to understand that, and I'm excited for those people to listen to the show.
Absolutely. Look, sometimes this is a show for older people. but not
Yes.
too older people.
Yeah, a very specific elder millennial video game show, which,
Yeah.
uh, hey, you play to your audience. Um, Speaking of Empire Records, I wanted to thank you because you recommended to me People of Note a few months ago.
Yes.
Got in touch with the publisher, got a review code. I adore it.
Oh,
It is
absolutely.
like
That's what I'm
everything I
playing through
want a
right
game to
now.
be.
I was
You're
playing through
playing through it
that
too?
right before we started recording.
I
Like,
love that.
I have gotten spoilers. I have gotten fourth party member.
Okay, I
Yeah,
know
no,
where you are.
I'm absolutely adoring it, and it is wonderful. We're both like theater kids
Yeah.
through and through, and so uh, seeing somebody, specifically Iridium Studios, are the folks behind this game, attempt to do and pretty much succeed at doing a RPG musical is just really delightful.
Hmm.
It's really, really fun to have sometimes these moments of great emotion that you have in RPGs typically break out into fights. In a musical, moments of great emotion typically break out into song. Uh, and so it's really fun for them to have these things where, sometimes it's going to break out into a musical number, sometimes it's going to break out into a fight. And then to see the way that they've tried to integrate these sort of like musical mechanics into the combat system is like really, really fun.
Hmm.
There are some aspects of it that remind me of Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which I don't remember if you ever played.
I played it on the Switch because
On the
I
It
had
was
it for
originally
Wii
on the Wii
U.
U. Yeah,
Yeah, and I was like, "I'm just gonna play this on the Switch
yeah.
regardless." What a great pull. Everyone forgot about Tokyo Mirage
Oh,
Sessions.
it is of that sort of like set of Shin Megami Tensei, sort of like games and spin-offs and everything. It's absolutely bar none my favorite.
Yeah.
Like I love the setting, the theme, I love the characters. I really love the session system that they have in the combat. It gives you this like sort of really interesting wrinkle on the typical like elemental weaknesses setup that Shin Megami Tensei games have and that they love to explore and like build upon. And it just like ends up being really fun. And who can dislike a game where the run up to the final boss is a whole bunch of like idols and Fire Emblem characters flying through the sky up to fight a big dragon while singing words to the Fire Emblem theme?
I mean, that should be in every game.
Yeah.
I seem to remember a lot of runways in Tokyo Mirage Sessions, just for no reason and for every reason. And like I said, I got it on Switch because I had it for Wii U, but
Hmm.
I didn't get around to it. And then eventually everyone was porting their games to the Switch. If they could just port that over to PC or PlayStation, I'm certain it would find a captive audience because it's just got so much of that sauce that
It's
makes a Persona game so flavorful.
It's really good and fun. I imagine that part of the challenge there is that it is this sort of like crossover licensing
Yeah.
situation. I can't speak to any of that myself. Like I don't know what that situation's like or who could make that happen. But yeah, I always think it's great when things are able to come out on more platforms and find new audiences.
When you said, I don't know who I'd have to talk to in my head, and I know this is wrong, but I was like, I'll talk to Marth. I'll talk to Roy. Yeah, that'll do it. And I'm just naming Smash
I,
Brothers characters at this point.
I bet like Ike is over there just holding the rights to that.
Did you ever play Three Houses?
I didn't. So like the last proper mainline Fire Emblem thing that I played was on the Game Boy Advance.
Perfect.
They like made a jump to 3D and I just sort of didn't go along with them. And I know that it's all like the same tactical gameplay and everything, but I have this I heart pixels pin here. I am a person who really loves pixel art. And for whatever reason, it was like that jump away from pixel art that was like, well, now I can't deal with this.
I get it. I always consider Three Houses to be my white whale because
Hmm.
I've started it like two or three times and then I get distracted or I have a baby and that keeps me from playing it.
Hmm.
But now I'm doing the foolish thing, which is, oh, it'll have a Switch 2 patch, and
Maybe.
waiting for a patch that might never come while I'm playing all of these other games. So you mentioned, you're a fan of pixels. So I'm curious. We've seen all of these remasters. I'm thinking about like
Hmm.
the Dragon Quest games, but the
Sure.
one that's really caught me is Octopath Traveler. Have you tried that at all? Because the pixel art, it
Sure.
feels like a natural progression. It doesn't feel like it's lost the soul
Hmm.
of the character design, but it's really enhancing everything that goes on around it. You played it?
Yeah. So I played the original Octopath Traveler back when that came out, and I really enjoyed it. That was a game that my spouse and I played together.
I
Much
love
like
that.
you and your spouse, my spouse and I love to play video games together. It's very much like our like normal sort of evenings or whatever are us spending time together. And one of the ways that we love to do that is by playing a game together, whether that is one of us driving and the other one like commenting or,
Mhm.
helping out or stuff, or if it's passing back and forth, or if it's playing something that's directly co-op. That's like our favorite stuff to do. And so we played through Octopath Traveler back when it came out, and we really enjoyed one, like you're saying, like the pixel art in those games is like pretty lovely, and they're like pretty respectful with how they augment it with their sort of like HD 2D approach, and they really do like tackle a bunch of like really fun challenges with their sort of like art direction and style in that game. And then I am like the weirdo who is like, I actually love that it's kind of 8 separate storylines
Yeah,
that only
yeah.
tie together at this like very end when you go to fight this like super secret boss that you can only do after you've completed all of their storylines. I think it reminds me of, and I'm almost certainly going to mispronounce this game's name because I've only ever seen it in print. Live Alive.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
which is also this sort of like, and it's a much older game, but it's sort of these different storylines that don't connect in
It's a lot
this
of
like
time
very
travel,
explicit
right?
way. Yeah, it's very different like eras
Yeah, okay.
kind of thing. And so yeah, it's I really enjoyed the first Octopath Traveler when I played it.
Well, I'm here to tell you, I liked Octopath 1.
Hmm.
I finished it, big fan. I got Octopath 2 for the PlayStation
Hmm.
5, uh, for whatever the designated platform was. And it kind of tightens up, I think, all the
Sure.
stories. But Square, those wild people at Square were like, we're gonna have our most charismatic figure want to be a capitalist.
It's
It's
the
weird.
funniest thing about that is that Tressa in Octopath 1, who is the merchant character, also ended up being one of our favorite characters in Octopath 1. And yeah, I think like the folks over at Acquire, which is the studio that worked on those, have like a really um I think, dear approach to characters where they want to really like make these characters endear themselves to you,
Mhm.
even if like they might like the pitch for them might seem like a little bit off-putting.
There's a lot of like tsundere and their characters where they're really prickly at first or quirky in a way that is a little off-putting, but by the time
Yeah.
you get to their second or third chapter, it's like, "Oh, you're broken. Now I love you."
And in the first Octopath Traveler, I don't know who you picked as like your starting character. We picked Alphonse, the alchemist
Like,
character in the first one, who is very much just like it's not explicitly true, but the vibe that he has is like, "Oh, that's your gay dad." Right? Like he's just the entire party's gay dad who wants to take care of everyone, make sure that like when you got like a little boo boo, I'm gonna put a bandage on that.
See, that's what
Like
I'm into. I'm
he's
dadcore now.
and like his storyline starts with him like being best friends and roommates with this other guy, and then it's like all about you going on this adventure and like finding this cure for this thing and then coming back to live forever happily with your definitely not a husband. uh, and it's like, yeah, how could I not love this guy?
That's my uncle.
Hmm.
I had an uncle for the longest time. I was like, "What's going on here?" And I think I figured it out before my dad. And I was like, "How do you not? It's Bert and Ernie." Like, before we get into your favorite game of all time, which I'm very excited to talk
Totally.
about, I kind of want to kind of want to delve in a little bit because there's some parts of your lore that I'm not 100% sure of.
Oh, sure.
So you switched majors in college because you wanted to stay in Chicago, as I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how you got into UI UX. Am I correct?
Yeah, basically. So I was going to college at DePaul University um, in the aughts, and I was majoring in game development because that was a program that DePaul offered. So I was taking a whole bunch of courses and working with Unreal and learning Blender and Maya and programming and all of that sort of stuff. And uh, while I was in school, 2008 financial crisis happened. And there were a number of ramifications to this. One of the sets of ramifications to this, right, is that uh, a whole bunch of things just sort of like fell apart. And this included like the games industry was impacted by this financial crisis, right? It was triggered by these sort of like subprime mortgage sort of situations,
Mhm.
but that ended up spiraling out into all of these different aspects of society. And so one of the things that happened was at the time in the aughts, there were, I wouldn't say a lot, but there were like a handful of game studios in and around Chicagoland, right? The most notable one was obviously Midway Games, right? But EA Games had an office out here
EA
over in
big.
Hoffman Estates. And then there were like a couple of other things. And so as one of the ramifications of, all of this financial uncertainty during that, a lot of the game industry started like kind of contracting and pulling out of some of these other locations and consolidating back in California and Washington, where they were more frequently like headquartered.
Hmm.
Midway ended up having to do like a bunch of layoffs around that time. They shut down their Hoffman Estates office. I think it was sort of like a slow like weaning and then shutting it down. I can't remember exactly, but it was this sort of thing where I was like, well, I really want to continue to live in Chicago. So I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, came to Chicago to go to school, and because I wanted to live in Chicago for the rest of my life. It's my favorite city in the world.
Hmm.
It's absolutely beautiful. We've got trans,
It's
so I'm
pretty
contractually
great.
obligated to love trains. And we have the most beautiful lakefront in the entire world. It's a lake that you can't see across.
I feel like
So,
people don't know that.
yeah.
Like it's so present. Like whenever you're on LSD, that's Lakeshore Drive to people that are familiar
Yeah.
with Chicago.
Jean
Like,
Baptiste du Sable Lakeshore Drive.
yeah. Thank you for Du Sable. It's truly gorgeous here, but 6 months out of the year, it's buried under snow and
Oh,
sleet and
absolutely.
bad weather. But like, it is the city where the summers just more than make up for it. And even the winter here is great because we're all accustomed to it.
Yeah. The thing is, like, part of it is like the winter is so bad in Chicago that as soon as it gets like decently nice out, so around kind of this time of year, the entire city just has to make up for the fact that it was so bad. And so everybody gets out, everybody throws events. There's like a million billion concerts
Mhm.
outdoors in Chicago from like mid-April, start of May through like October. Many of them are free, right? There's big blues festivals, jazz festivals. There's, Lollapalooza is here,
Division.
obviously.
Wicker Park Days. There's a
All of these kinds of
gorgeous
things.
Andersonville Fest, which Charlie Hall, Chamber of Commerce,
Mm-hmm.
puts that together. You just open the
Absolutely.
roads. It's amazing.
Yeah, we do. We totally just like here in my neighborhood of Andersonville, like we just shut down part of the street for like an entire period of the summer so that we can have a big party and people can have a good time and walk around and get food. It's great. And also, the Chicago Park District does movies in like all of the parks, which is like
Mhm.
over 100 parks in the city. They do free movie showings basically every night, sometimes multiple ones at multiple different parks on the same night. And it's all like, it's not all just like old films or something. Like they'll like, it's obviously not like new films that are in theaters, right? They're not like competing with the movie theaters on that, but like
Nope.
you can go
The
out and
park
have a
near
great
us
time.
is doing all the Despicable Me's and the
Oh,
Minions,
yeah.
and it's been an inside joke with Liz and I. where I'll always be like, "This is my wife. She loves the Minions,"
Mhm.
and people are like, "Do you really love the Minions?" And like her family gets her Minion paraphernalia now, but they're playing at this park near us, and I was like, "We have to go. It's your whole brand." But you're right. Like they would play all the Star Wars movies, and they wouldn't just play kids movies or PG-13. Sometimes they play like what was a Chris? They played Dunkirk in one of the parks. It's like,
Wow.
okay, is that the ideal way to watch this? I don't think so, but you do you. It's such a charitable city for community.
Mhm.
And I'm not just talking about the north side. Like if you
No,
venture into the south side, it's like a completely different city full of an amazing community that deserves to get recognition.
absolutely. And the some of those programs that I'm talking about, right? Like the movies in the park, like that happens all across the city, north
Hmm.
side, south side, wherever, right? The beauty of the lakefront, that's all protected basically for 11 straight miles. Like you can't develop something there. It's protected lakefront that is for the people. There's beaches all over it. It's great. So I love Chicago a lot. And I was like, well, I would like to stay in Chicago. While I was doing my game development major in college, I was working on a minor in human computer interaction, HCI, which is basically like doing user experience research.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily formally like building user experiences, but it is a lot about like studying how users interact with things and doing user research and all of that sort of stuff. And so I was like, look, it's probably hard for me to get a full time job if I stay in game development without leaving Chicago. If I switch over to user research as, human computer interaction as my major, it's more likely that I can stay in Chicago. And part of the reason for this is I'm an absolute weirdo. When I was a child, I first encountered a computer and I was like, I know that I want to be on computer all the time. And so as soon as I got on the internet, I was like, I want to know how to build website because there's this whole internet thing. And so I had been learning on my own how to build websites the boring, old fashioned old people way, which was
HTML.
literally viewing source
Yep.
of well, and so this was all before HTML5. So HTML5 is like relatively modern to what relative to when I'm learning how to build websites. So like the new thing when I'm learning to build websites is like well, you can have a separate style sheet. Like that's a different type of file that you can link.
I love
Like
this because
CSS is being ratified.
like I'm thinking Tripod, GeoCities, Angel Fire, and I was right there
Yeah.
along with you. I had a Pokemon fan site,
Mm-hmm.
and I basically would go like view source, take out everything that I knew how to work with,
Mm-hmm.
port it over, and be like, I'm going to change these colors, these hexes. Now it's mine.
So when I was on like hobbyist and independent game developer web forums in the late 90s and early aughts, right? This is like folks who were playing around with all different kinds of tools like Flash and
Java.
ClickTeam Fusion and Game Maker and a bunch of stuff like that, RPG Maker, etc. People like I had already known that I wanted to make video games, and so I was hanging out on these forums and like trying to play around with these tools and learn how to make video games, right? And one of the things that people also like to do is when they, make like little web pages for the games that they made, whether that was for like individual ones or for like just the whole collection of things that they made or whatever. And so this was like how I learned to build websites was like looking at these websites that other people had made that I was like, this is just like normal people that are on this forum with me, right? Like this isn't like a company made this website. This is like
Hmm.
somebody on this forum knows how to build a website. So I can build a website because I'm also on this forum, right? Like they're just another person, right? And so I studied that and I was doing that. And so I had been doing that for like I don't know, 7, 8 years or so before I ever went off to college. So I was like 10 years old learning how to build
Hmm.
websites. Very normal. I have a
No,
very
like
good normal
we have
brain that
similar
works in
lore, and
totally
it
normal ways.
it makes me happy.
And so, like, midway through college, when this sort of like contraction is happening, I'm like, okay, I'm going to switch over. I'm going to do this major in HCI. I should be able to use that to help with like being a web developer, right? and have my focus be on like front end web development. And so I finished up school. I graduated with my major in what DePaul calls quote unquote interactive media. I don't know if you remember this band, I Fight Dragons.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I love
So
I Fight Dragons.
yeah, so I had first seen I Fight Dragons when I was in college, and I ended up befriending a number of the members of the band.
Like Brian Mazaferi and all them.
I actually don't think I ever got to talk to Brian, but
Okay.
so Mike from the band I did know, and I actually like reached out to him because he was working at Groupon, uh, and uh, he and I had like Mike Mentzer specifically. Sorry, I
I've definitely
realized I
seen
just
that
like
name.
reached out. So Mike Mentzer was one of the original members of I Fight Dragons. He was a guitarist for the band, and so Mike Mentzer and I knew each other, and I knew that he was working at Groupon, and he was like, "You should totally come work at Groupon," and I was like, "Yeah, I'll go interview at Groupon or whatever," because he knew a couple of the folks in the engineering department over there, and was able to get me like an in. And so I went and I talked to them, and you know, I started working at Groupon, which is where we met. Like a handful of times because there were multiple floors of that building, and everyone was like so weirdly separated, but we'd all permeate because sometimes food would come to like better food would come to different floors.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That was its own mini game. It's like, oh, there's
yeah,
tacos on 6. Great. We're gonna
well,
pose as that.
yeah, we're gonna be Sixers today. Um, but
I
yeah,
love that I
so
Fight Dragons was the connective tissue there.
yeah,
I associate them so much. They were my first concert in Chicago. Just because I was walking through Andersonville and I
mhm,
saw a poster and it's like, oh, pixel art. Cool. And I checked them out and I still have so many of their songs on our mixes. Like my daughter listens to I Fight Dragons now, which is
sure.
wild.
Totally. It's been a while since I listened to them, but it was really fun to like see them playing with this like fusion of like chiptunes and rock.
Using the power glove, just
Yeah,
to, like make music.
it was
And
always a really fun show to go to, and yeah. So then I worked at Groupon for a while. I ended up leaving and going to work for Cards Against Humanity, where I specifically worked at Black Box, which was their shipping and fulfillment
mhm.
arm for like other people's stuff. So helped out with building dashboards and internal tools and all of that kind of stuff, and worked on a couple of cards marketing sites and things. A fun fact is that the Nintendo 64 that is on the Geek Pack advertising, that's my N64. I brought it in. They cleaned it up and took a bunch of photos of it and everything. And then, yeah, eventually Cards Against Humanity decided to sell Black Box
Black Box.
off to Ad Magic, which was
Yeah.
the folks who were printing Cards Against Humanity. And around that time, I sort of like helped them with a couple of like transitionary things. And then I was like, okay, I gotta bounce. I did a little bit of work in between here and there, but I was feeling like really, really burnt out after that on web development. And thankfully I had like saved up a little bit of money to be able to like take a little bit of time off. And while I was doing that sort of like burnout recovery, I was like, look, the pandemic is happening. Companies are actually like hiring remote now. I think it's finally the time that I can get back to working on video games.
Mhm.
And so I interviewed at a couple of places, and ultimately I ended up going to work at Bungie, where I am a senior technical UX designer on Destiny 2. And that's where I'm at today.
Destiny 2, which if I was ever a guest on my own show, might be the game I pick. Like it's definitely in top 3. I still remember when you told me, I was like, I have this secret. I have this amazing piece of knowledge. And I'm just like, it's one of those things where you hear the news and you're
Mhm.
so overwhelmingly happy for somebody that you're like, it just fits. It just makes sense.
I was so excited to get the news, and then I was so excited to share it with you because I was like, "Gosh, I know Aaron loves Destiny so much. This is gonna be so cool." Yeah, it just like I don't know. I have had a really really good time working on Destiny, and it's been really nice.
And that's all you can really ask for in this day and age, right?
Yeah,
Like what you do, be treated nicely and feel fulfilled with your work.
yeah.
So can we rewind the tape a little bit, because the major change, the pandemic, all these different sort of chapters of your life that have
hmm
led you to where you are now. Can we zero in, like, when did you know that you loved video games?
When did I know that I loved video games? That is a great question. I think I
Does that like
knew
sort of fold in with the game we're going to talk about?
it amazingly, it doesn't.
Perfect.
I knew I loved video games from an extremely young age. It's difficult to say what the first video game I ever played was because they've just kind of always been in my life. I had a computer in my house when I was very, very young. My dad was a water operator, and so he had a computer in our house to be able to remotely check like the water levels at
Huh.
water towers. And when I was very, very young, my dad taught me how to like boot Windows in MS-DOS mode to like run a game off of a floppy disk. And so I'm not sure, like, it could have been like that game where you're like two gorillas throwing banana bombs at each other. That was my first game. It could have been like Duke Nukem 1. It definitely wasn't Doom, but I did play Doom at probably too young an age.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah, and then I think that the first moment I can really like remember loving a game that wasn't just something that like had been kind of put in front of me was when I got a Sega Genesis and Sonic the Hedgehog 2,
Hell yeah, man.
which, gotta go fast, right? So yeah, it's just like video games have kind of always been a part of my life and have always kind of been a part of my life that is like in relation with other people and how I interact with those other people, right? Like it started with this like relationship with my dad, and then it became this thing that like I talked to other kids about, and we hung out and played video games and stuff. And I had a lot of those moments in childhood where it was like, I have a Sega Genesis and my friend has like a Super Nintendo. And so I'm going to go over to my friend's place and I'm going to play all these games that are like totally different from any of the games that I know. And then like, I'm going to go to like my grandparents' place, and for some reason they have like a Sega Master System, and
Okay.
I'm gonna play like the Ghostbusters game on the Sega Master System, and I have that Master System over in my living room now because when my grandma was like moving out of her place, was like, "Do you want this?" So yeah, like it's tough to answer like when I first like fell in love with video games because it's just like it's always
Yeah, it's like loving nature. Like you go
yeah.
outside and you're like, it's just apparent. It's something that you said really resonated with me, which is it's always in relation to other people.
Mhm.
I told you the story before we began recording, playing Mario Brothers with my mom, my dad with Mario Kart. I can't tell you the number of people I've met either for this show or just in real life
Mhm.
that said, I would play Zelda with a sibling, and
Sure.
like one person would do the puzzles, the other person would do the combat. For there being kind of an overwhelming amount of single player games out there, we are naturally social creatures and we will find a way to make, like, that's why Twitch exists, you know?
Yeah.
It's why Resident Evil, I love playing with friends because it makes it less scary.
Mhm.
But games are inherently a social construct we've created. So even the solo experiences we attribute to those experiences with other people. And I just adore that.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
I mean, like, I'll tell you straight up, right? Like, one of the things that like I was considering, because when you first posed the question to me of like, what is your favorite game? I was like, I had this gut feeling, and the game I'm going to talk about is the one that I had the gut feeling about. And then I spent like a week. I want to say it was almost literally like a whole week, just like thinking through all of the other things and being like, but maybe, but maybe, but maybe, but maybe. One of the things that didn't make the cut is Hamtaro Ham Ham Heartbreak for
Oh
the
my
Game Boy
God.
Advance, which is a game that I played together with my younger sibling. And It's an adventure game. It's sort of like, it's not like a side view, like point and click type adventure game. It's sort of like a 3/4 view, like almost like an
Like
RPG, but
isometric?
without like combat. Not quite isometric. It's still like square tile based, and not like diamond tile based. But it is obviously a Hamtaro game. In it, through the course of the game, you are going around and finding all of these basically verbs to use, right? Because at the start of the game, this evil hamster in this devil costume or whatever
Of course.
makes all of the hamsters and other creatures and stuff like get upset at each other, basically. Like he's messing with their relationships between each other. And he also totally wipes out Hamtaro's like hamster dictionary,
Okay.
which I guess Hamtaro needs to
Yeah. To form basic sentences.
and so you like are going around trying to like learn all of these things, and the things that you are learning are like or like, but yeah, so it's this like it's this adventure game where you're kind of running around collecting all of the verbs you might use in like an adventure game that is like one of those point and click like old Scum style
Like, look at, use
games. Yeah.
whatever verb they would want you to.
Yeah, and there's one that's like tack Q, and that's like roll into something to. It's sort of like
Sure.
attack you, right? But and yeah, so like that was one of the things that I was thinking about. I was like, no, I don't like this is not. I don't feel that strongly about it. Like I think it's a great game, to be clear, but it's not my favorite. But it is like so many of these stories that we have about games are, those relational stories. Like I can tell you about the first time that I saw like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and it was because I went over to my friend's place who had a PlayStation 1. I didn't. I had a Nintendo 64, and they had gotten like a demo disc with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 on it.
That
And it was
warehouse
just like
level?
the warehouse level, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sitting there being like, so here I am doing everything I can. And that's just like, yeah, it's great. And you're just sort of like, I remember the feeling of like sitting on the ground with my back against like the foot of the bed, like looking up at this TV that's like on top of the dresser, and we're just playing Tony Hawk, right?
Those demo discs were responsible for a lot of sleepover nights where
Yeah.
kids did not sleep. Like between that and Crash Bandicoot, Twisted Metal must have been on one of them because I remember playing a shit ton of Twisted Metal
Sure.
as a kid growing up. But the activity of going over to somebody else's house to see what they had is something you just don't get anymore.
No.
Against my better judgment, I picked up the Invincible Versus game last night because I was just like really jonesing for Invincible. And I was like, I'll have friends over and we can all play Invincible Versus. I was like, that's not going to happen. No one's coming over. Like, I'm either going to stream it online or they're going to buy their own copy, which isn't going to happen.
Sure.
And we'll play online. But like, this is entirely a single player venture for me now.
Well, and the other part of this is like, when I was a kid, like, I had a couple of games that I owned, but most of the games that I played as a kid were either like me going to somebody else's house and playing a game, or me renting video games and going to Blockbuster, renting a video game, bringing it back, playing it. When you rented a video game, it was like, yeah, all your friends are coming over. They want to see whatever the heck this is, right? Because like, this is this like totally bizarro thing. Like nobody's ever seen this or heard of it, right?
Like Donkey Kong Country 3, it was like, I'm going to rent it and this is our whole Saturday.
Sure.
We're like, oh, it's just Donkey Kong Country. Great. Cool.
Totally. Or like I rented the video game Mischief Makers for the Nintendo 64.
Hell yeah. I love that game.
Was also a contender for favorite game. I love everything that Treasure makes. I am a total Treasure head, but especially for all of the like 2D side scrolling stuff that they make. And the entire so I rented Mischief Makers. I had it for 3 days. You could rent the game for 3 days back at the time. You could pay like twice as much to rent it for 4 days, and no parent was ever agreeing to that. So I had it for 3 days. I had my friends come over. We were playing it this whole time. The entire time we had it rented the first time, not a single one of us, because you rent the game and it's like somebody's save is already started, and so you're like picking it up in the middle or something. The entire time we had this, we did not realize that you could control the game using the D-pad on the Nintendo 64. We thought that the only way you could move was using the C buttons on that game do like dashes. We thought that was the only way you could.
So you played
and
on
we
hard
still
mode.
had and we still had so much fun that I rented that game again. And the second time I rented it, I realized that you could use the D-pad because I was playing on my own, by which I mean with my younger siblings, instead of with like all of my friends or whatever, passing the controller around in pure chaos. I realized that you could use the D-pad, and now I own a copy of Mischief Makers because I'm like, I love this game so much, right? There's a stage near the end of that game called Clan Wars 3, and it's just goofy and fun. And you're like going through this like wave after wave of enemy as you're going forward to like face off against the final boss. I love that game, but it's not my favorite game.
Well, let's get into your favorite game. But first, I need to ask people for $1. So I'll get through this really quick. Y'all listening, The Last Save Lounge is supported by Patreon at patreon.com/hoodieweather. By supporting Hoodie Weather, patrons get a bonus segment each week, a bundle of Hoodie Weather games, and ad-free episodes in your feeds. If times are tough, I think you are too. You can still support The Last Save Lounge by subscribing to the show right now. Do it right now. By having more subscribers, we can attract more guests and listeners. Be sure to rate and review us on your podcast app of choice. Tell your friends or your rivals we're not picky. This is the first week we haven't had a new review. I'm very thankful for the 15-week run we've had with people reviewing us and telling friends, but I've gotten used to it now. So if you could please review us, I'd be very happy. If not, whatever. I hope you like the show. For those of us joining us after the mid-tro, I'm here with Neon O'Day, and we are about to jump into their favorite game of all time. So let me serve it up. Neon, what is your favorite game of all time?
So I'm going to be honest here. I've been hinting at it this whole time with this pin on my jacket.
Oh, is that an R-Wing?
That is an R-Wing. My favorite game of all time is Star Fox 64.
Hell yeah, still a banger in your words.
Yeah, absolutely still a banger. I played through Star Fox 64 literally yesterday, playing through my favorite route of that game. I had not played through Star Fox 64 in probably 10, 15 years.
I mean, that's understandable.
Like that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Came out in 97.
Yeah. Totally reasonable amount of time to have not played a game that came out 29 years ago. But I managed to play through the entirety of my favorite route as I like to play it, which for folks who are going to obsess over this until I get to it, my favorite route is from Corneria through Sector Y into Aquis, into Zone S, then doing the proper good way of clearing Zone S, and then going into, and Aaron, I'm going to say the name of the next stage is something that as theater kids we're not supposed to say except during performances, and so I'm going to give it its subtitle name, which is displayed in the game under its name and in the pause screen, The Forever Train. You might know it as The Scottish World.
Well done. I was like, is it really named The Scottish Play? Is that what we're doing?
And then doing the super cool finish of that stage to get back onto the hard path to Area 6, and then going through Venom 2 to properly defeat Andross, actual Andross, real Andross. So the short version of that is it is the hard route with one detour into a medium difficulty level. And the primary reason that I do that detour into the medium difficulty level is that I'm going to read directly from my notes here. This level whips. The Scottish World, The Forever Train, is a stage in that game that is just an absolute banger. And yeah, so Star Fox 64.
I cannot visualize that level now, because I usually, after I've done the hard mode, I'm like, that's just the way I play it now. But you have such a better grasp on it than I do, obviously.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about why I love the game so much, and
Sure.
then we can get to why I love that level specifically. So the thing about Star Fox 64 is that it's kind of a remake or reboot of the original Star Fox, right? So they make the first Star Fox. They start working on a Star Fox 2. That game doesn't come out until very recently. When the N64 rolls around, they work on rebooting the first Star Fox. The first Star Fox is kind of a tech demo for a lot of 3D visual effects on its system. And so it's a really natural game for them to choose to be like, we're going to do a remake of this on the Nintendo 64, our flagship 3D game system, where we actually have the power to like really do everything we wanted to do here. And so they do. For folks who don't know anything about Star Fox, it is what is called a rail shooter. Other games that are in this rail shooter genre that you might be familiar with are like Rez or Panzer Dragoon. I know that it's a little bit weird to be like, oh, you might know Panzer Dragoon if you don't know Star Fox 64.
But you're right. And it's funny because when you said Rez, I was like, oh, duh.
Yeah.
But like so many games have kind of fallen from this lineage.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a ton of these games on Steam. I can't remember if it was Draenus or Whisker Survivor. Whisker Survivor is essentially Star Fox as a roguelike. But
yes, with roguelike elements.
It really set the blueprint for a lot of other games.
Yeah. And so what that means is it's a game where, for the most part, you are moving forward through like a set sort of path through stages, and you are shooting at enemies that are coming at you from kind of all different directions. Some rail shooters, like Panzer Dragoon, give you more camera control over that stuff, so you can kind of look around more. Star Fox is like pretty pure as far as rail shooters go. Like, you technically could go into cockpit mode, and that seems like a recipe for motion sickness to me.
Yeah,
but
no thanks.
You still can only like deviate so far from this line that you are going on. And then at some moments in stages, or in some whole stages, you are in what is called, quote unquote, all range mode, where you are in kind of a square shaped arena. You can go any direction that you want. And when you hit the edges of that, you just sort of like do a U-turn and fly back into the arena. So most of the stages are these sort of like corridor rail shooter levels. But the thing that is like wonderful and notable to me about Star Fox 64 is that it's really, really playful about this. So stages, like I said, there are different ways to complete stages, and those can involve taking different routes through them. So it is a rail shooter, but it's a rail shooter with like junctions, where there are different things you can do to unlock different routes to go through.
Like save a friendly person or not get all the bogeys down. Yeah.
So like, for example, in the first stage, at one of your crewmates, Falco Lombardi, who's a lot of people's favorite crewmate. I don't care for Falco all that much. He's fine. There's
a lot of Smash
too
players
mean to you.
Yeah.
After defeating the boss of the second stage in my preferred game route, Falco says to Fox, I guess you're good for something. And I'm like, my guy, in the first stage, you were being chased by 3 total trash mobs, and the only life I lost in my entire playthrough of Star Fox 64 was restarting that stage to manage to successfully kill those 3 trash mobs. Because you otherwise died to them.
What a jackass. They're on the same team.
Come on, man. They don't die. They just fly away, and then they get their ship repaired, but they're not there for the next stage, and they can't help you or anything. So Falco is the only person I did not manage to rescue at any point in my entire playthrough.
That's fine.
Of that
I'm more
game.
of a peppy guy.
Yeah, but you do have to rescue Falco in that first stage, because if you rescue Falco in that first stage, there is a archipelago that you go through that has these stone arches, and if you fly through all of those stone arches, after you're done doing that, Falco is like, hey, follow me through this waterfall over here, and that puts you on the path to go defeat the alternative boss to the first stage, which allows you to go to Sector Y, which is the start of the hard route of the game. So Star Fox has this like really interesting system where you have these 3 members of your crew, Peppy Hare, Falco Lombardi, and Slippy Toad. They each have their own thing that they're sort of good at doing. So Peppy Hare is able to give you advice about like what something's weak spots might be. So if you're fighting a boss, Peppy will be like, shoot those energy balls or whatever.
And conveniently,
Falco.
they all have like glowing spots on them where you should hit.
Yeah, 100%. Peppy likes to point out the obvious. I don't know that I can say this is for sure true. I saw on the internet at one point somebody state very confidently that there is exactly one character in the entire game of Star Fox 64 who ever has a dialogue line that is in response to something that Peppy Hare says, and that character is Slippy. To every other character, Peppy apparently might as well be a ghost.
Yeah. He's a Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense.
Yeah. I wouldn't say he's Peppy's ghost because General Pepper is already there in the game, so there's already a Pepper's ghost. But yeah.
Well, I didn't realize it. That's so funny for the film trick. That's so smart.
Yeah. So Peppy tells you about weak spots. Falco occasionally can help you with like alternate paths through levels. On the actual route that I like to play through, it's only in that first stage that Falco ever does this, but he does legitimately do it through a couple of the other stages in the game. Slippy, the most important member of the Star Fox crew that isn't Star Fox, has the most important ability, which is allows you to see the boss's health bar and repairs everybody else's ships between stages. So if Slippy as a crew member is downed, nobody else's ship gets repaired between stages until Slippy is back.
I didn't realize that.
And you can't see the boss health bar until Slippy is back, which means you have to wait for a stage. Slippy is the most frequent, at least back when Star Fox 64 came out, Slippy was the most frequently maligned character of the Star Fox crew. He has kind of a high voice. He's voiced by a woman. And if you are playing on the easy route of the game, if you're going through the easiest stages and doing them straightforwardly, there is a point in the game where Slippy will go to attempt to fight a boss while you are fighting it and get sort of batted off away to this other planet, which unlocks the next of the easy route stages. I believe it's called Titania, where you are going there to try and search for Slippy, to rescue Slippy. I think this contributes to why a whole bunch of people find Slippy annoying, is because there's literally to them an entire mission in the game that is about rescuing Slippy, and there's not an entire mission in the game that's about rescuing any other member. But the thing is, it's a little bit telling on yourself because you actually can defeat that boss before Slippy ever gets batted away. So, I don't know, get good. Slippy made all of your ships.
So is Slippy also responsible for the theory that every R-Wing pilot needs to have like their legs cut off at their knees? Because that's, if Slippy made the ships, but that was also part of the design, I worry about Slippy.
So the thing is, all of the R-Wings in Star Fox 64 are made by Slippy and Slippy's dad, who have formed a company called R-Space that make the R-Wings. The R-Wings are prototype fighter jets. So I think that they were just sort of made for frogs. and now like they're being piloted by at least 3 not frog things, and that's just kind of inconvenient.
It's great to watch Miyamoto field a question about this, because he clearly had like no intention of ever thinking about it too deeply.
Sure.
And then I think like Kit and Krista from the Nintendo podcast asked him, do people have to chop off their legs below their knees to pilot an R-Wing? And he's like, oh my God, this is a game for everybody. This isn't rated M for mature. And it's like, sorry, man, Nintendo fans, this is just the way we do it.
But yeah.
Your description of rail shooters brought me to a haunting question that I have to ask. Because we said, Star Fox paved the way for a lot of these other rail shooters, Rez, Panzer Dragoon.
Sure, Panzer Dragoon comes a little bit before Star Fox 64, but after original Star Fox, I believe. So
sure.
Yeah.
Does this make Pokemon Snap a Star Fox-like?
I think Pokemon Snap is probably a Star Fox-like, a non-violent Star Fox-alike.
Yeah, I like that.
Star Fox 64, despite being E for everyone, is definitely, I think it's E for everyone, is very violent. In like a space shooting kind of way. In a Star Wars way.
Yeah, so I didn't have the chance to play through the entire game, but I went back and watched the true canon ending.
Mhm.
And one, the music is, it's typical N64
Yeah.
music, a lot of beeps and boops, but it's very evocative of like a horror show in space. Like there's
Mhm.
some Event Horizon nonsense going on there. But the first time you see the true form of Andross,
Yeah.
it's like scary because
It's
his
terrifying.
face like flies at the screen and tries to eat you. And then motherfucker he dissolves
Turns
into a
into a
brain with
brain!
eyes. It's wild.
A brain
It's
with detached
scary.
eyeballs that are attached with like electricity. And
Like,
there's like this like tentacle thing going on at the bottom.
yeah.
And to
It's
defeat that form of Andross, you have to shoot like the lower like lobe of the brain.
it may be E for everyone, but that doesn't mean everyone will like it.
Oh yeah, no. I will be totally honest. Like I said, the only time I died the entire time I was doing my playthrough was not even dying. It was using retry course, which eats an R wing, which is very silly in the first stage to do that instead of just like literally restarting, because it's like I haven't done anything. The only time I lost, so a mechanic in this game is that like you can upgrade. So you have your ship, the R wing. It has these wings, right? Taking significant amounts of damage in the game can knock the wings off of your R-Wing. And if you've got any like laser upgrades or things, then it'll remove those upgrades that you have. The only time in the entire like playthrough that I lost my wings was in that final Andross fight, and it was in that brain phase. And the reason is it's like weirdly difficult to tell how close you are to that brain during that fight. And if you get even remotely close, it will like suck you into those tentacles, and it just like absolutely breaks both of your wings immediately.
Don't like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a creepy fight. It's a creepy fight.
And like a lot of the boss designs before that have a little bit of whimsy, like you're fighting these giant robot animal things in space, and it's
Sure, Sector Y has basically like 3 Gundams as a boss fight, right? There's like Sector Y, almost like the entire stage has this like through line of Gundam. Like it opens with a shot of these 2 like basically Zaku's, but with monkey heads. Because a lot of things in Star Fox 64 are like a lot of the enemies in Star Fox 64 like are monkeys, because I guess
yeah,
Andross, who
gorillas.
is like a monkey or whatever, got a whole bunch of them. The other like lane of them is like lizards.
And
So Sector
wolves.
Y is like shot through with like all of these like Gundam references, right? Like they've got these like very like Zaku like enemies, and then at the end you're fighting things that are like a little bit more like proper Gundams, and you fight like 2 of them, and then a third one pops up and it's like even stronger or whatever. And you're also like, there's like a whole bunch of like battalions of gunships with all of these like lasers firing in every direction throughout that stage. And then later in Area 6, there's also some of those sort of Gundam vibes, but there are all of these different types of ships and everything. And at the end of it, you're fighting this like weird sort of like spinning disc that has like 3 tentacle crane arms, right? Like most of the bosses in this game are sort of like whimsical in that sense. In the Forever Train, right, the boss is this like flying robot that is like a kite coming out of the back of this train, and
I
it's
feel
just
so like a sucker I didn't play this level now, because
Mhm,
I like have glimpses of it, but it's been so long.
mhm.
The thing is, it sounds very Star Fox,
Yeah.
like a trapezoid coming out
There's
of a train.
another
Yeah, sure.
there's another level in this game which I absolutely adore, but I just have a hard time routing in because of the route affordances for it, that is entirely like an Independence Day homage. There's like a giant saucer that is above. There are enemy ships pouring out all over. It's positioned over this like pyramid, and you're like joining up with the Cornerian army to like fight off this like thing, and it's going to like blast this. So the pyramid is like a government building or something like that, and it's going to just absolutely blast this thing down, and you have to like ultimately defeat it by like breaking all of these bays that are like spewing out like more and more fighters, but then also by destroying it right where that laser is going to be firing from, because that's the weak point, right?
Hmm. You're the
And so
Randy
you
Quaid.
yeah, so you have to basically be doing that, right? I mean, it's really, really fun and cool. But yeah,
So obviously you have such an acumen for the routes in this game and the design. There's so many things to love about Star Fox.
Mhm.
What is it that makes it your favorite game of all time?
totally. The thing that makes it my favorite game of all time is, and I'm gonna connect this back to the thing that we were talking about earlier, which is that like so many things about gaming are so relational. When you play through Star Fox 64, there is this single player game. There's also multiplayer to Star Fox 64. So it has split screen multiplayer where you and your friends can fly around in these ships and shoot at each other, right? And have a blast doing that, picking up things, doing all of that. Eventually, you can also switch over to, like in multiplayer, you can get the option to play as either an R-Wing or the Landmaster, which is a tank that is used in the Forever Train level, my favorite level of the game. So here's where Star
boy.
Fox 64 becomes my favorite game. In each stage of Star Fox 64, there is a score count to get to, where if you finish the level with a score above that and all of your crew members alive, you will get a medal. If you get medals on every single level, not just in one run, but like in each of the levels. So going
Mhm.
through the game enough to play all of the levels and get medals on each of them, including both of the different variations of Venom, right? Venom 1 and Venom 2 count as different levels, despite the fact that you can only play one of them in any given run. Then you unlock Expert Mode for Star Fox 64. Once you've unlocked Expert Mode, if you go to Venom 2 and you get a medal in Expert Mode Venom 2, so even higher score count required, even harder level, you unlock in multiplayer the ability to play as just the members of the Star Fox crew running around with little bazookas. And this was mind blowing to me as a kid because it was wildly hard to do, but it also made me basically the coolest kid
Yeah, it's bragging
because
rights.
nobody else had a Star Fox 64 where they could run around as those little guys in multiplayer. None of my friends did. Some of them had Star Fox 64, some of them didn't, but none of them had unlocked this. And so that made my place the place that you had to come, hang out, and play Star Fox 64. And that was that's just delightful, right? Like that's this really fun, interesting, goofy factor here, right? Where it's like, okay, like we're all gonna come hang out at Neon's place so that we can play Star Fox 64. Or if we want to play Star Fox 64 multiplayer, we gotta invite Neon over because they have to bring their cartridge. So that is because this is also like, back in the day when your saves for your game are stored on the cartridge.
That's like you planting your flag.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like, this is my thing.
This is
I
my
am
thing.
on Foursquare. I am the mayor,
Mm-hmm.
That is something that's so relatable because I remember my GoldenEye 64 cartridge.
Uh-huh.
I had gotten through enough of the game on Double O Agent, whatever the hardest mode was, that like I had the golden gun, I had all the levels, I had everything. And it was a little bit of sort of owning the activity. And I've always liked being that person in life where like, I'm going to get all the Street Fighter stuff so that if people want to come over and play Street Fighter, we have all the costumes, we have everything. I've always been that way. But it totally originated back then. And I'm trying to think of other N64 games where it was similar, like maybe some Mario Kart, maybe some racers, but it's such a fun and unique way to look at it. I don't think I've ever played Star Fox multiplayer. I had no idea you could just run around without the tank. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So you can, and the one of the funny things you can do with that is like, so you can run around, you can shoot with like a little bazooka, and you can also jump. And so you can, like, my friends and I loved doing this. We would run around as like the little guys, and you can jump on top of each other and just like stack up like a pole.
That is like what you see in friend slap games now.
Yeah.
Like what you're describing. Yeah. I know I've seen that same trick in Battlefield 6.
Uh-huh.
And of course, Nintendo was the one to develop this. Have there been multiplayer in other Star Fox games? I just don't. I never fiddled around with
sure.
that.
So, like, this is the other funny thing about this is, like, Star Fox 64 is my favorite game. I played Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet. I
Yep.
enjoyed it. I think I played a little bit of Star Fox Assault, and that's probably the last Star Fox game that I played.
Well, it's not your fault. It's Nintendo's because they just don't want to make Star Fox games.
I think that more people should make Star Fox games.
They are. They're just not calling it Star Fox.
Sure, absolutely. And
I
the
went
thing
to the
is, like,
exchange.
what I'm looking for in a Star Fox, like, is not necessarily what other people are looking for in a Star Fox 64, like, and that's totally fine and great. But
Now I'm in a similar boat where my time to play games has diminished, so I really value that authored tailored experience, which is why I gravitate towards a lot of big RPGs. It's a world I can really get lost
Mhm.
in, and I play it so often I don't have to reacquaint myself with the controls. But I have time for like one roguelike in my
Sure.
life at a time. So right
Yeah.
now, Vampire Crawlers, like it's so easy for me to get back into that. But oftentimes now, if I see a game as roguelike, I either have to be like on a dip where I'm not playing something else, or it really has to tie into the gameplay in a way that makes sense. Like
Totally.
thematically, it really needs to feed into that loop. I love the way that Hades does it, but how many games can be Hades, you know?
Absolutely, right. And again, like, I enjoy roguelikes. I have played roguelikes since the original Rogue, but time-wise, you're absolutely correct. Sometimes it can be really difficult to fit something like that into our busy schedules for things, right? The most recent thing that I would describe as roguelike that I ended up playing and enjoying was Blueprints, which also very possibly could have made my favorite games, selection here.
I just
If
have all of these blueprints keys on my desk because my wife and I love blueprints. So I bought a bunch of
Mhm.
the blind boxes and we just have a bunch of the elevator key and the garden key now. And why do I'm finding people to give them away to. I'll mail these to you if you want, but killer game, but thematically made a
Absolutely.
lot of
They
sense.
they just announced
The
an update.
accessibility update.
Yeah, which has a whole bunch of accessibility features. So if you haven't been able to play Blueprints because you have difficulty distinguishing between some of the colors that it uses and needs you to be able to distinguish between, if you haven't played Blueprints because you have motion sickness when you're walking through some areas or when you're walking up spiral staircases, things like that, they've got features that you can turn on to help deal with that. They even have a thing that visually pops like labels out for
Mhm.
colors on objects that you're looking at to help you kind of understand those if you can't find a sort of like different color contrast setting that works for you. um, yeah, it's Blueprints is like a really, really fantastic game, and to do the game that the puzzle that they wanted to do mechanically demands it to be roguelike. And I really appreciate that about it because it makes it a very thorough sort of mystery game
Mhm.
and sort of puzzle game.
I'm waiting for a guest to bring that game on. I just talked to a guest that picked a game where I'm like, wow, it took us 17 episodes to get there. Okay, cool. But those sort of games that sort of take over the way you look at things,
Mhm.
like in Blueprints, I was like, oh, I'm suddenly looking at every vent in our house,
Yeah.
thinking about like how things connect, you know? I love that. I just don't have as much time. But I didn't finish Star Fox when I played through it, but a
Mhm.
half hour in, I was like, "Oh, I could finish this in a sitting." And
Yeah.
I miss that about some of those old classics. Like even Chrono Trigger is not that long of a game by
It's
today's
not.
standards.
Like it's the thing about, and I'll focus this around like Star Fox here. Like, it's designed for you to play through it in about an hour, hour and a half.
Mhm.
If you are having struggles, it might take like a little bit longer than that or whatever, but it's designed for its like playthrough to be like pretty tight because it wants you to replay these levels, find these other paths through, experiment with these things. One of the notes that I have here from playing through, and this is a note that I took down in the very first level, and it stays true for like the rest of the game, is that they're very playful with the design of the stages in this game around how your movement works. So there's very frequently like a little arch or something, or like a building that's destroyed such that it has this like hole in the middle.
Mhm.
And you will look at that while you're playing through and you're like, I bet I could fly through that. Or I bet I could do a loop-de-loop through there. And if you go do that, the game is like, oh yeah, you did see that. I recognize that. That's great. Here's like a power-up, right? And so it's this delightful little thing where they build this game so that like it's relatively quick to play through, so that you don't have to turn the Nintendo 64 off in the middle, right, at any point. And they pack the levels with all of these little things to just be like, well, yeah, just try different things, right? Like, yes, you're on a rail, but like explore, right? Figure out where you can go off of that, right? There are points in levels where you can do a different path through the level just by being on like the top or the bottom of the screen, or the left or right side of the screen, and you'll sort of junction that rail, and almost to a T, those are going to like branch back into the same thing, but sometimes they're going to lead you down different things. There's very, very well hidden paths through this game. I'm thinking about some of the warp paths that require you to just like be very careful about how you go through levels. And then some of the paths are like really obvious. They're like literally just like defeat these people before they kill you, right?
But it rewards that creativity and exploration. And, you are much more familiar with this game than I am, but when you're talking about those Tory-inspired gates and that fallen over building, I remember very vividly, like you go under and it populates a heart for you or some sort of power up.
Yeah.
It's like, you did it. Here you go. And you're like, oh, where else can I go?
Yeah.
So it's constantly giving you that feedback loop of don't just stay in the middle of the screen and dodge enemy fire. They want you to explore this small on rails but dense area that they made for you.
And then it's also really funny how like the game sort of like plays with expectations that it builds, and how you as a player can learn and like do things different the next time. All through the game there's this mechanic where you can like get like a phone call, basically. Like it goes like dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. And Rob64, who is like the evolution of Rob the robot for the Super Nintendo, who people mostly probably know from Smash at this point, is like calling you to be like, hey, I want to give you some supplies or whatever. And you can do that all the time. Near the end of the game, you will start getting some of those calls, and they will just be from Andros instead. Like he's hijacked your frequency. He's giving you that call, and he'll just like taunt you or whatever. It might sometimes like, in some circumstances, it might like make some new enemy squadrons appear or something like that. And you can learn to be like, oh no, that one's going to be like an Andros taunt, right? So the next time you play through that stage, you can like not do that. You can just kind of like have a little bit of an easier time, or like not have someone negging you.
I love the idea of Andros negging you throughout that final stage.
Yeah.
His voice actor is pretty intimidating too. I mean,
he is.
To have...
I mean, look, he is intimidating, but the iconic voice line of the Star Fox series to me, I know for a whole bunch of people it's do a barrel roll. That's fine. Whatever. The iconic voice line of Star Fox 64 to me is still Star Wolf's, I can't let you do that, Star Fox.
Yes. Spoken just like Asterion. Whenever I hear Asterion now, I hear Star Wolf. Fantastic. But I mean, for good reason, we get the barrel roll line. But
it's a great line.
Some people have like gotten to that line and they're like, great, I got it. But that Star Wolf stage is like 3 or 4 stages in. Yeah.
It's just like it's so weirdly posh.
Yeah. Like you expect like a really gruff, angry voice, but
Star
then
Wolf is like a wolf with like an eye patch and like a clear scar, right? Like he's this like rough and tumble guy who's coming to kick your ass. And then, And
he sounds like one of the Kingsmen, which, great. I love breaking out of that stereotype. But as a kid, I was like, interesting. Neon, we're running a little long, so I want to wrap this up. But
it's unfortunately, being as good friends as we are, it's like really difficult to not just like keep talking forever.
Well, and like early on, I was like, oh, it's going to be a little bit longer. That's totally okay.
Yeah.
But now that my dog has woken up, she's looking at me like, what the hell? You need to take me out. And I don't want her to pee on my couch.
Totally.
But if we wanted to, I know that we can see some of your work in Destiny 2 right now, but is there any other place you'd want to direct people to?
If you like really want to, you can follow me at neon.voyage on Blue Sky. I don't really post all that much.
That's
so
healthy.
there's like most of my work goes into Destiny 2, and I don't have a whole bunch of stuff that I do kind of outside of that other than spend time with my partner.
I mean, that sounds pretty
So
great.
yeah, that's kind of it. Like occasionally you can get a joke if you follow me over on Blue Sky, but that's about it.
It sounds a lot like people should just play Destiny 2, which is a thing I've been telling people for years. So, if you'd like to see Neon's work, Destiny 2 is right there. One of the best games of all time. Take it from somebody that's entirely biased. Me. Neon, I was so happy when I heard what your game was, and I was able to revisit it and remember some stories of my playthrough with Star Fox. But thanks so much for giving us some deep lore into your journey and really just like sending that enthusiasm at me because it pinballs around and it makes me really just like excited to go back.
Yeah, I
That
know
being
your
s-
other guests have been like very like high-minded and like story focused about like what their favorite games are, or character focused about what their favorite games are, and I'm just like, I don't know, I like shooting stuff in the rail shooter, which is very funny because like my favorite type of game to play with my spouse is not that at all. It's Blueprints or Tunic or Fez or Animal Well.
Tunic,
Like,
but it takes all kinds, right? And
yeah,
like I said, your favorite game today may not be your favorite game tomorrow. And
absolutely.
like Pocopia, friend, I have fallen down the Pocopia aesthetic rabbit hole on TikTok and Instagram. There's a creator I follow from Milan called Zoybean, and she makes the most incredible stuff. It makes me want to be a better Pocopia builder.
Hmm.
It's like unlocked a creative side aesthetically that I didn't have in other games. And I'm like, is this my favorite game of all time? No, you just love Pikachu. But is it your favorite game of all time? Probably.
Who can
It's
say?
it's up there. And another day it might be Dragon Age Inquisition because I'll be read for filth by anybody in Thetis. I know who I am. But like I said, it's just so joyful, and I love hearing that story about getting the bragging rights for Star Fox multiplayer. Truly, I have not heard that before, and I'm so happy that that exists. I'm going to look it up on YouTube once I'm done giving Ripley her walk.
Yeah.
But dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to The Last Save Lounge. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Once again, thank you to Neon O'Day for coming on. The Last Save Lounge is produced by Hoodie Weather, creating comfy games and podcasts broken in like your favorite hoodie. You can support Hoodie Weather by going to patreon.com/hoodieweather and becoming a patron for just $1. I'll see you next week, where my guest is going to be content creator Braska's daughter, where you can probably guess with a name like that what game we'll be talking about, but I'll see you then.